Well, here we are. My goodness, the round of 32. This has been a crazy season. So many things that I don't think any of us could have expected. Now, recently I did a round of 32 predictions video. I was asked to do it because during the 2-week hiatus, and I thought that'd be a fun idea. We'd only seen some of the matches. There was still plenty of wiggle room. Sure, some robots were dead certainties, but it was still a lot to play for. Now, of course, if I do this again, I definitely plan on doing it in the pre-season because it makes a lot more sense that way. But it was a fun little thing, and something I might consider in the future, despite how angry I made that one person. But it's finally time. I've been wanting to see how well my predictions have aged. So, my predictions were Endgame, Witch Doctor, Riptide, Sawblaze, Minotaur, Claw Viper, Ripperoni, Huge, Quantum, Copperhead, Death Roll, Hydra, Mad Catter, Beta, Scorpios, Cobalt, Blip, Fusion, Malice, Lucky, Black Dragon, Rotator, Hypershock, Bloodsport, Free Shipping, Gruff, Jackpot, Switchback, Monsoon, Whiplash, Tantrum, Ribbot, and Lockjaw. Now hang on, that's 33 robots. Yes, that's because when I was making the initial predictions video, I accidentally deleted Lockjaw. And I can tell you that Lockjaw would have definitely made it on the list had I realised that mistake. So, I mean, 33 is not that bad. Anyway, now with that being said though, there were 3 robots that I got wrong. And 2 robots where I not only got them right, but I actually got their seeding right. Which is crazy, because I didn't give it that kind of crazy thought that you might think. I kind of went oh, Endgame, it's a former champion, and it's, it's going to be 3-1. That seems like a solid chance it'll be a, number 1 seed. But, still getting 2 right, in the exact placement is pretty good. So with that being said, let's look at the round of 32. Now, in number 1 is Minotaur! Minotaur coming in undefeated 4-0. It's absolutely deserved with some of the robots that it's beaten. I know that typically they consider a strength of schedule only with Battlebots records, but I need to just explain the level that Minotaur has gone here. Tantrum, of course, a former Battlebots champion, the last Battlebots champion, in fact, the winner of the Giant Nut. Then you got Free Shipping, which, has Gary Jin, a multi-time RoboGames champion. You've got Cobalt, which was built by the Carbide team, who was a Robot Wars champion. And of course, you have them winning that rematch with Witch Doctor. An incredible, insanely impressive strength of schedule. And I gotta say, that absolutely makes sense that they would get the number 1 seed. And it honestly makes me happy that they got it over a robot like Endgame. Don't get me wrong, Endgame was very impressive themselves, but I'm glad that their being a former champion didn't weigh so heavily that it overrode some of the achievements of the other robots. In the number 2 seed, we have Riptide, which honestly wasn't too far off my initial guess, given that I guessed number 3. In fact, Witch Doctor and Riptide basically swapped places for me. Riptide, another 4-0 robot, and my god, this thing is terrifyingly, dominating. Its wins have been so impressive and so devastating that right now it looks pretty much unstoppable. It is a genuine Giant Nut contender. I am shocked at how well it's done. Yeah, I'd expect it to be something like Captain Shredderator, and, Glitch, while it was a shocker, Glitch has been on a bit of a shocker of a run this season. But Mad Catter and Black Dragon, they are no small feat. They absolutely stomp them, however, and that's pretty scary. If there's a robot that could go the distance, it genuinely could be Riptide. Then at number 3, as I already spoiled, was Witch Doctor, coming in at 3-1. Now, Witch Doctor, I'm kind of surprised that it's gone so much higher than Endgame. I'm not saying it's a bad thing that they got a higher seeding, but I'm surprised it isn't a little bit closer, because, it's gonna be a little bit till we get to Endgame. But still, Witch Doctor absolutely deserves a high seeding for its performance. You know, it did especially well against the likes of Ribot and Gruff. It got that incredible, like they said, match of the season, match of the year against Fusion. Just incredible all around. And while that Minotaur fight was a bit of a letdown, I'd still say Witch Doctor is still a very high-tier contender, and I'm super happy to see them get the recognition they deserve. Then at number 4, we got Hydra. Now, Hydra absolutely deserved the seed that they got based on their performance. Their only loss is to the defending champion Tantrum. Meanwhile, they did absolutely incredibly, like, not even close, against robots like Rotator, Free Shipping, and Sawblaze, making it look absolutely easy, despite the fact that robots like Rotator and Sawblaze have typically been a thorn in other robots' side. Honestly, very well played in my opinion, and Hydra right now is the most dominating flipper in Battlebots, and yeah, there's a lot to look forward to with them. At number 5, it's Quantum. Now, I was super happy to see that Quantum got such a high seed. Again, like, it doesn't matter that much, but I didn't expect Quantum to get such a high seed, but it going 4-0 does make a lot of sense. Again, it's 4-0, it beat the likes of Shredderator, Gruff, Black Dragon, and Emulsifier, so it actually has defeated some robots that Riptide beat as well, though not quite in the same dominating fashion. Still, Quantum has got one of the best crushers in the game, able to pierce any robot it even thinks about, and even if the crusher gets taken out like in the Emulsifier fight, the grabbing force and the driving power means that they can easily take control of a battle, which makes them just so good. It means if they get put up against a particularly mean spinner, they're not necessarily out of the game right away. Then at number 6, we have Huge! And Huge, with a 4-0 record as well, has absolutely decimated the competition, winning over Shatter, Blip, Fusion, and Starchild. And Huge has been on one crazy run as of late. That bar is better than ever. Like, that thing is genuinely devastating. It's embedded itself in robots. It's just caused all kinds of havoc. Starchild was barely clinging on by the end of their fight together. Huge is looking to be achieving every bit of the potential that we've been seeing for years. Like, this is the kind of robot which I had expected to take out Bite Force, do what Chomp had done by taking out the weapon belt, or weapon chain, or whatever it was, and, you know, being able to just rain down the pain from above. This is a genuine robot that could really upset things in the round of 32, but we will get to that. Stay tuned, because I will be giving my predictions on how I think the round of 32 will go. Then at number 7, we have Endgame. Now, Endgame, definitely slightly lower than I would have expected at number 7, but I can't say that I'm too shocked given the incredible KO loss that they took against Ripperoni, and I'm guessing the Gigabyte fight didn't quite do enough for them. As much as it was dominating, Gigabyte's not a robot that likely weighed too heavily for them. But wins against Blip and Hypershock, I imagine, did a lot more for them, and Endgame, in my opinion, is still a favourite to win the Giant Nut. There is just so much that works well with Endgame, and as long as they don't make that same mistake again, which they don't seem like they're going to, then yeah, they look like they could be a shoo-in to get to the finals. Then at number 8, we have Sawblaze. Now, Sawblaze, coming in with a 3-1 record, actually has won pretty well in all of its fights. It got a judge's decision against Hypershock, which, if we remember, the fight got called off because its weapon got embedded in Hypershock. Lockjaw, it won by KO. Scorpios was by KO. Its only loss was to the number 4 seed, Hydra. So that's all in all a pretty strong strength of schedule for a 3-1 record. With that in mind, that means Sawblaze, in my opinion, is still a top contender in Battlebots, and it's really showing that with its record. At number 9, it's Cobalt! And oh my god, anyone who doubted Cobalt, well, I gotta say that, you know, the 3-1 record might put some of those doubters to rest, but maybe not all of them. Wins over Death Roll, Overhaul, and Lucky, all by KO, are absolutely impressive and shows that with Cobalt, if you get on the wrong side of them, you are destined to be taken out. It doesn't matter how dense your armor is, it doesn't matter how tough you think you are, you will get torn to shreds. However, Cobalt has fallen afoul of Minotaur, the number 1 seed. And this is where things are really going to fall for Cobalt. How are they going to fare against the top robots in the competition? Are they going to prove that they're one of the best vertical spinners in the competition? Or is this where they begin to fail? And at number 10, a robot that I even got the number right, it's Copperhead. Coming in with a 3-1 record, its wins have been absolutely incredible, all things considered. You know, it had the fight against Bloodsport, which was basically one hit and it was done. It had the fight with Triton, where it absolutely destroyed Triton's back end. It had the fight with Kraken, which it also won quite decisively. The only fight that it didn't absolutely dominate was against Ripperoni, because Ripperoni was just able to, take advantage of a driving error. Cuphead has done especially well. I'd even argue this is probably their best performance to date so far. And while we haven't got to see them against some of the top tier verts yet, Copperhead is showing that they are without a doubt one to fear. Definitely one of the top tier drum spinners. Absolutely up there with the likes of Minotaur in Battlebots. That's the top 10 seeds. So many incredible robots showcasing themselves here in Battlebots. But we have 22 more to go. With number 11, we have Claw Viper! And my god, did anyone expect Claw Viper to come in with such an incredible performance this season? Wins against Ominous. Sure, Ominous is a slightly newer design, maybe. People could maybe see that one going that way. Ribbot? No! Ribbot, who'd been doing so well, suddenly just gets bodied by Claw Viper. Overhaul? Okay, maybe a little bit more, but still, Claw Viper, not only has it won these fights, it has absolutely devastated the competition, suffocating them with that almighty speed, they are lightning quick, and a lot of robots don't know how to handle that. The real kink in its armor, however, has been against robots like Hypershock. See, Claw Viper is great when it's in control, but just one bad move against a robot like that, and it's all curtains. And I think that's really going to play a major part for Claw Viper here in the round of 32. Still getting recognized with an 11 seed is amazing, and I'm so happy for them. Now at number 12, it's Ripperoni! Now, I gotta imagine some people will have argued that Ripperoni should have gotten a higher seed, which I can see that. Given that its only loss has been to Gruff, its other wins have been to Endgame, Hijinks, and Copperhead. Which, I gotta say, those are some pretty good robots to win to, especially in the ways that it did. Ripperoni's wins have been pretty damn decisive. And I wonder if maybe the cartoonish design kind of, maybe not intentionally, but subconsciously docked it some points. I'm not sure, that's entirely speculation on my part. I could be entirely off base there. But still, a number 12 seed is pretty damn good. That's still the upper half of the seeds. Then at number 13, it's Beta. And let me tell you, in terms of the robots that I really love, Minotaur, Quantum, Beta, some of them are doing way better than I expected, honestly, in the seeds. Cobalt, there's just so many robots that I expected to do quite well. They've got much higher seedings overall. Now, looking at Beta, I can absolutely see why. Its wins against Kraken, Shadow, and Bloodsport were absolutely impressive, with its only real loss being to Black Dragon. But I'm surprised that the loss to Black Dragon didn't dock them more points, given just how bad that loss was. And it's really what worries me about Beta heading into the round of 32. They don't handle verts well at all. And don't get me wrong, I'm not expecting Beta to become the Giant Nut winner, but I'd love to see them make a deep run in the tournament. But if they face a robot that, like Black Dragon, again, then they're in trouble. Then at number 14, it's Lockjaw. Lockjaw getting the number 14 seed with some pretty nice wins overall, beating the likes of Malice, Glitch, and Mad Kata. Two of those wins being by KO. Now, its loss was to Sawblaze, but honestly, Sawblaze is a pretty good robot to lose to. So overall, I imagine this is a very strong case, not only of a 3-1 record, but a pretty sturdy strength of schedule. Not overwhelmingly so, such as a robot like Endgames, but still pretty solid nonetheless, and that's probably why it has such a high standing. Now we're starting to reach the halfway point, as number 15, it's Lucky! Now Lucky with another 3-1 record, but it's one, I gotta admit, the 3-1 has probably helped it more than the strength of schedule in this case, as its wins were to Triton, which Triton is very unproven and clearly needs a lot more work done, Kraken, which there's a lot of potential there as well, similar to Triton, but it's just not there yet. Shredded Bro, which Shredded Bro really only showed its potential at the end, with its one loss being to Cobalt, which Cobalt is the strongest opponent that it's had so far. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a massive Lucky fan, so I am super happy that it's gotten the number 15 seed, but I really hope that they have an answer for the big vertical spinners as well, because if they do, then Lucky could be very fun to watch. Again though, super happy that they've made it to the round of 32. Then at number 16, someone who was quite a bit higher in the placements than I thought they would be, it's Switchback. Now Switchback making it with 3-1, which, what? Holy cow! Now I thought that Switchback would go like 2-2, and that would be enough to get them like a lower place seeding. No, 3-1! That's incredible! Switchback really got to show the power of it and potential of its weapon in the latter stages when it fought Hijinks and ripped the bar clean off. It also had wins against Banshee and Ominous, and you can tell at the beginning of the season that they really were having some teething troubles against the likes of Banshee. The fight against Death Roll, wasn't amazing, but it seems like the robot is getting better and better with each subsequent fight, which might bode well for them. I don't think they're going to make it to the Giant Nut, but it'll be interesting to see how far they can go. Then at number 17, we have Malice! Malice coming in with a 3-1 record of its own, and it's actually done pretty darn well for itself. Its losses to Lockjaw, which again, if you count for the strength of schedule, that's a pretty good robot to lose to, and has wins over Emulsifier, Valkyrie, and Gruff, being a robot that actually knocked Gruff out, which is really shocking, honestly, but crazy good. Now, normally I don't rate, like, wedgelets and forks on horizontals that highly, I get it, I've seen how it works for, like, Bloodsport, but, like, it's never something that I fully understand, but, like, Bloodsport and Malice seem to be the only ones that really are able to make good use of that kind of thing. It actually, they especially in that Gruff match, getting under Gruff and being able to lay in those hits really was very beneficial for them. At number 18, it's Hypershock! And Hypershock with a 2-2 record, having the strength of schedule helps out a lot for Hypershock in this case. Not only did it have really impressive wins against Whiplash and Claw Viper, but its losses were to Sawblaze and Endgame, and it nearly made the distance with Endgame, keep in mind. So, with that in mind, Hypershock had a pretty good run of it. And I've got to say that Hypershock continues to prove to be a robot that is pretty damn decent at, it's a pretty damn decent robot. The spinner can leave mighty bites, it's pretty darn quick, maybe not Claw Viper fast, but that maneuverability can make them a threat in the arena. When it all comes together, he can really disrupt the competition. Then at number 19, it's Bloodsport, and I gotta tell you, I was very worried for Bloodsport, admittedly. After its loss to Beta, I thought that they might be done. Winning against Gigabyte and Rotator's great and all, but the loss to Copperhead being as bad as it was, and how they were bodied by Beta had me concerned that it was just not going to be enough. But they made it in, and I gotta tell you, I am super happy, because I still think this Bloodsport has so much potential to it. We've seen that it has a ton of power in the weaponry, and as long as a robot doesn't completely deflect it like Beta did, I think they could absolutely tear a robot apart. So I'll be interested to see how Bloodsport does in the round of 32. Then at number 20, It's Whiplash! Whiplash, my god, another case of a robot that, started off on a rough start, but has absolutely made a comeback. It's kind of crazy, really. Like Mad Catter and Hypershock were absolutely painful losses. Whiplash was a shadow of its former self. But the win against Monsoon showed that there was still some life there, and the win against Tantrum showed that if everything works as it should, we might just still have a, deep run in Whiplash. It's hard to say yet, as we haven't yet seen it face a robot like Tantrum that goes the distance, so it's going to be interesting to see if Whiplash can keep on top of its game, or if a robot will catch it out. Then at number 21, and another robot that I actually got the exact number right, is Black Dragon. Now, Black Dragon, with a 2-2 record, actually had some pretty good fights, all things considered. It fought the likes of Monsoon, which it won by KO. It KO'd Beta, of course. And its only losses were to Quantum and Riptide, which, given how high these two have been placed, especially Riptide, that's gotta be pretty darn good for them. Black Dragon, I think, was likely going to make it anyway, just because it's been so impressive. But, the fights have absolutely been testament to that, with the only real stomping being the Riptide fight. I think Black Dragon is a pretty damn great robot, all things considered, and Warrior is finally getting some respect shown to them, which I think is very well deserved. Then at number 22, we have Mad Catter! Mad Catter with a 2-2 record, with fights against Whiplash and Big Dill going in their favour, with their losses being to Riptide and Lockjaw. Again, the strength of schedule I think comes in there, but their fights against Whiplash and Big Dill were so good, so much fun to watch, and that's probably what helped them in the end, because the KO win to Whiplash was pretty good, and I mean, they were, it's just a fun robot. I'm not surprised that it made it in. Then at number 23, it's Rotator! Rotator, of course, coming in with a 2-2 record, getting even with the Waiachi clan, as while they lost to Hydra, they won against Fusion, which I think both of those situations aren't so bad. Obviously, winning against Hydra is so much better. Don't get me mistaken. Just because I'm saying strength of schedule, obviously wins matter a lot more than losses. It's why you see robots with 3-1 standing much higher than robots at 2-2. But still, losing to a robot like Hydra and losing to a robot like Bloodsport isn't so bad as, say, losing to a robot like Horizon, for instance. And so when that is taken into account, those are some pretty good robots to lose to. And of course their wins have been to Fusion and Jackpot, which are some pretty solid robots to beat. With that in mind, Rotator's doing pretty well for itself, but it really needs to bring it all together against some of those higher tier robots, because right now it's not a certain thing for them. Then at number 24, it's Monsoon! Monsoon with a mighty 2-2 record. Just when I thought things were starting to get really dicey for them, they managed to win against Death Roll, which honestly I was pretty surprised by. Not to say that Monsoon isn't a pretty good robot, but Death Roll can be scary sometimes, as we've seen when they fought Endgame back in the day. Their losses were to Black Dragon and Whiplash, which I imagine is a good strength of schedule argument, and their win against Horizon was so damn quick. All in all, that's a pretty solid schedule. Sure, we're getting weaker as we go along, but still, enough for Monsoon to make it through, and I'm really happy for them there. Then at number 25, it's Blip. Now Blip, who has had a bit of a rocky time honestly, still manages to make it through with a 2-2 record. Now its losses were to Endgame and Huge, which all things considered aren't the worst robots to lose to, and its win against Tantrum absolutely probably helped them even more in the right direction, seeing as Tantrum is the defending champion. But their Banshee fight was very weak, so I imagine that's why, despite everything, their placement is as low as it is, because it's just not a strong enough performance to get them in a particularly high seeding. Then at number 26, it's Tantrum. Now, Tantrum, I remember when I made my round of 32 predictions, I predicted that they make it in the round of 32 simply because they're the defending champions, and based on this, 1-3 record, I feel even more strongly about that, because this has been a pretty rough time for them. Now, the schedule absolutely speaks for itself. Robots like Minotaur, Hydra, Blip, and Whiplash, that's a pretty strong schedule all in all, but its losses have been pretty bad, all things considered. It's not been a strong time for the defending champions. Now, hopefully they can start to redeem themselves in the round of 32, but it might just be that they'll have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what went wrong heading into World Championship 8. Then we have Scorpios coming in at number 27. Now, Scorpios coming in with a 2-2 record. Its major losses have been to Ribbot and Sawblaze, and I have to say, I think the Sawblaze loss is really what cinched it into such a low position, because it really didn't put up any fight at all. Sawblaze quickly took it out. But its wins against Jackpot and Big Deal were pretty good, all things considered. With that in mind, it's not done too badly. I'd even argue that if we went off performance alone, I'd probably place it higher than Tantrum at the very least. But still, Scorpio's placing in the round of 32 is very promising, and I'm super happy for them. Then at number 28, it's Ribbot! Now, Ribbot, holy cow, I'm actually kind of shocked they made it in. If you check my pinned comment on my round of 32 predictions video, I said that if I could, I'd swap Lockjaw with Ribbot. But Ribbot actually did make it in, which is really surprising, because it's another 1-3 robot. Its losses are to Witch Doctor, Claw Viper, and Jackpot, which you can make the argument that those are some good robots to lose to, but a 1-3 record just in general is so difficult to make a good argument for. But it has managed to make it through, and based on its last performance, there may still be some fight in the frog yet. Then at number 29, it's Death Roll! Death Roll coming in with a 2-2 record, and its placement being this low, I can totally understand, because its wins haven't been against the highest tier robots. Robots like Switchback and Mammoth. I love the look of Switchback, and I've always loved Mammoth, but they're not robots that are going to get you worldwide acclaim for beating, and their losses have been to other big vertical spinners in Cobalt and Monsoon. Still, with that in mind, a 2-2 record is still pretty damn good, and clearly it was decided that it was enough to get them through, which I absolutely agree with. I think Death Roll still has plenty of tricks up its sleeve, and I think it could really pull a major upset. Then at number 30, it's Jackpot! Now, Jackpot coming in with a 2-2 record as well, with losses to Scorpios and Rotator. Its wins have been against Ribbot and Captain Shredderator. Losses to Scorpios and Rotator aren't the best for Jackpot, especially given Scorpios typically loses to Verts. That almost seems like it was gift wrap for Jackpot. But wins against Ribbot is pretty damn good, and Shredderator is basically another free win for them. So it's looking a bit dicey for them, but the Las Vegas locals might still get a visit from Lady Luck in the round of 32. Now at number 31, and a robot I did not predict at all, the one robot I didn't expect to make it into the round of 32 that did, is Shatter. And can you blame me when you look at the way that it dealt with the fights it had? A loss to Horizon, being bodied by Beater and Huge, and with only a win over Ominous, I genuinely did not expect to see Shatter at all place in the 31, in the round of 32, especially given that there were several 2-2 robots. I'm not saying robots like Mammoth could have gotten very far, but it just shocks me. I love Shatter, don't get me misunderstood, but that is crazy to me that it was enough to get through. This one I'm not sure I agree with. I'm happy for Shatter, but I just don't quite see eye to eye, I feel. Then at number 32, it's Fusion! Now Fusion are another robot at 1-3. This one I can understand a little bit more because the strength of schedule is just that little bit better, it's one win against Emulsifier, that's pretty good for them. Their robots, the robots that they lost to, though, being Witch Doctor, Huge, and Rotator, have been pretty good, all things considered. Those are good robots to lose to. Still, Fusion definitely is very rocky, so I can understand why they got the 32 seed. But, oh man, that's the thing though, isn't it? The final seeds are always going to be dicey, so I could see plenty of people arguing that Fusion shouldn't have made it through. Now, the two other robots that I didn't get right, I mentioned how I didn't predict Shatter making it in. Well, the two robots that I predicted would get in but didn't were Gruff and Free Shipping. Which, at the end of the day, that's just the way things go sometimes. Gruff and Free Shipping with a 1-3 record were going to have an uphill battle, really. But I am a little bit shocked for Gruff, given that its fights, were against Ripperoni, Quantum, Witch Doctor, and Malice. I would have thought that maybe would have given it a win over, say, I thought it would have maybe given it a seed over a robot like Shatter. But, I don't know how the selection committee picks the 32 seeds, so I don't see how they got to that position, but I'm not here to argue, if that makes sense. This isn't me getting on my soapbox and ranting from the rooftops, why couldn't it be Gruff? Oh man, I don't. It's fun for it's fun to watch and talk about this at the end of the day for me. I don't take it that seriously, but that is the round of 32, which, my goodness, all in all though, that is whether you agree or disagree. I think it's hard to disagree that this is a strong lineup. Absolutely incredible. Some impressive robots, some designs that we maybe didn't expect to do as well as they did, but proving that alternative designs really can go to the distance. I'm just so happy to see so many wonderful designs make it through. But let's go on to the predictions on how I think the round of 32 will go. So, the fights in the round of 32 include Minotaur versus Fusion, which I gotta say, I think Minotaur definitely has that. Fusion has proven to be very impressive, but its unreliability against Minotaur, which often has supreme reliability, I think is going to prove to be a massive headache for them. I think Minotaur is going to be so aggressive and overwhelming that Fusion is going to have a hell of a hard time. Then you got Switchback versus Malice, which I gotta say, I don't think Switchback is going to have the same luck with Malice that it did with Hijinks. So I think that's going to be an easy win for Malice. Then in Sawblaze versus Blip, I gotta give it to Sawblaze. Sure, Sawblaze suffered badly against Hydra, but Blip has not been having the run I would have expected from them, and I think Sawblaze could really overwhelm the Flipper. Then in Cobalt versus Monsoon, I gotta give this one to Cobalt. If they get underneath Monsoon, they really risk tearing them apart, and given that Monsoon has so many little bits that move around, Monsoon is a prime target to get split into pieces. Then in Hydra versus Deathroll, this is really a fight that could go either way. I think it's going to lean more towards Hydra, but if Hydra's not careful, Deathroll absolutely could leave a huge gash in them. It's one that I could see a major upset taking place. Then in Beta versus Whiplash, I'm going to lean towards Beta in this case, because I am not fully convinced that Whiplash has figured out all their problems. And I think that if Beta can take advantage, as long as they don't go for that anti-vert setup again, I think Beta could overwhelm and absolutely dominate Whiplash in this fight. Then in Quantum versus Ribbot, I've got to give it a Quantum. Ribbot, while it's had a strong performance, again, I'm not fully convinced that they've got everything worked out, and Quantum has proven to be a robot that, even if they take out the crushing fangs, could still overwhelm with that grabbing and driving ability. I think it could be close, but I still think Quantum could have this one. Then in Ripperoni versus Black Dragon, I gotta say, this one is one I'm actually really torn on, because on one hand, Ripperoni has had some amazing battles, but I think this is going to be their first time facing a big-time vertical spinner that's not going to just get immediately caught on the kill source slots. Now, with that in mind, I gotta say, I think Black Dragon might actually end up winning. I know, listen, I'd love for the pizza to make it through. This is one of those predictions I hope I get wrong, but Black Dragon, is a robot that typically is so reliable that I could see them just overwhelming the pizza in the end. The design just seems like there's certain ways that Black Dragon could take control. Then we have Riptide versus Shatter, and let's be honest, Riptide has this one easily. And like I said, I love Shatter, but I just can't see how they'll be able to deal with Riptide. Riptide is so devastating. I worry that this could end up being the last fight we see with Shatter, unless Team Bots FC end up with like a massive rebuild of the robot. I could see Shatter in pieces. In Lucky versus Hypershock, I gotta say things are looking pretty grim for Lucky there. I think I'm gonna lean towards Hypershock, but again, I'd love to see Lucky doing well here. But Hypershock, they could get so low to the ground. We saw how Lucky can deal with we've seen how badly Lucky deals with powerful vertical spinners. I just don't see them beating Hypershock here. Then in Endgame versus Tantrum, it's got to be Endgame. Tantrum has really struggled this time around, and while I think that they are still a high-tier contender, they're just not up to par this season. They really need to figure out what's going wrong here, but I think that's a situation that they've got to prepare for in World Championship 8, as I think that their run will end in the first round of 32. Then in Copperhead versus Rotator, I'm gonna give it to Copperhead. I think Copperhead is just so reliable, so capable, that I think that they're going to beat Rotator quite handily, actually. Then in Witch Doctor versus Jackpot, I think this one risks being a complete stomping. Witch Doctor has gotten everything dialed in pretty much, and I think that against Jackpot, while Jackpot might put up a decent fight, it risks getting absolutely bodied, given how we saw it break down at one point when flipped over in the Scorpios fight. It's a fight which could go the distance, or could end in moments, but I still think Witch Doctor wins in either case. Then it's Lockjaw versus Bloodsport, and this is one that I'm very torn on. Again, this is a case of where Lockjaw on paper makes a lot more sense as the vertical spinner, but Bloodsport as that powerful horizontal could prove to be the upset. I'm gonna be leaning towards Bloodsport on this one, as if they avoid breaking down, they might do to Lockjaw what Tombstone did and tear some of those wheels off. I think that the damage they could do to Lockjaw might just overwhelm Donald Hudson and the team, so yeah, I think Bloodsport will make it through. Then in Huge versus Scorpios, I'm sorry Team Scorpios, but I gotta go with Huge on this one. Huge has been on a whole other level this season, and I just think nothing is gonna stop it yet. This is a runaway freight train right now, and the way things are going, I could see it going all the way to the semi-finals. Now, finally, we have Claw Viper versus Mad Catter, and man, this one, I gotta go with Mad Catter. I wish I could go with Claw Viper, but as we saw in the Hypershock fight, if they get hit with that big vertical spinner, that can be curtains for them. And sure, Mad Catter's not fast like Hypershock, and so it's not going to be able to dominate quite the same way. But I worry for poor Claw Viper. I worry that it's not going to be able to, I don't think they're going to be able to bounce back quite as quickly as they would hope. And I think Mad Catter is just going to have them, just like that. Of course, as much as I love Mad Catter, this is one that I hope I get wrong, because it would be so good to see a design like Claw Viper's going the distance. Now let's go over the round of 16. So with Minotaur versus Malice, I think Malice has done very well for itself, but I feel like when it comes to that weapon-on-weapon power, Malice just doesn't compare to Minotaur. I feel like Minotaur might really ruin Malice's day, honestly. Like, you think about how badly it got messed up against Emulsifier? Yeah, along those lines, basically, but, Minotaur isn't going to just randomly die, so I think Minotaur has that one. Then in Sawblaze versus Cobalt, I'm actually going to try and go against the grain here. Now, don't get me wrong, I realize that I'm probably going to be wrong in this one, but hear me out. So, obviously, Sawblaze has the general advantage, given that it's much lower to the ground. Cobalt really tends to struggle with that, but just one mistake, I feel, is all Cobalt needs. If Cobalt can get that huge shot in on Sawblaze, they might really turn this fight around. Don't get me wrong, I know going with Cobalt is probably the wrong avenue to take, but hey, you know, sometimes you gotta live a little. Sometimes you gotta try and go for the wild card. And I think Cobalt's gonna be my wild card for this fight. Then with Hydra versus Beta, I gotta say, Hydra I feel will have that any day of the week. It doesn't matter how Beta comes out, what hammer, what front it has. It's just, Hydra is a scary robot. It's so low to the ground, its flipper is so powerful. I feel like Beta won't stand a chance if those two end up facing each other. Then if Quantum and Black Dragon have a rematch, once again I've got to give it to Quantum. Quantum, in my opinion, is just so good at controlling fights, and we saw what happens when the two collide. I imagine Black Dragon will learn from its previous mistake and pick smaller wheels if this rematch does in fact happen. Again, we're speculating on matches that might not even happen, but I feel that's still not going to be enough to stop Quantum from taking the W and moving on to the round of 8. Again, assuming this fight even happens. This is the thing, I was a bit uncertain about doing these predictions, because obviously there's a chance these fights just don't happen, but it can be fun. I can't wait for like this, as time goes on, for this to diverge further and further from the actual, like, what happens. Then with Riptide versus a Hypershock, oh man, I gotta say, I think Riptide is gonna have it. Like, in terms of weapon to weapon, Hypershock does stand at least a decent chance against them, but the problem is, if Riptide tips Hypershock over, we know that the game is basically over. Riptide is so dangerously aggressive when a robot is flipped over, as we saw in the Mad Cata fight. And given the fact that Hypershock is so bad when it's flipped over, I gotta say, Riptide is going to just decimate Hypershock. I just feel so bad for them. Then if we get Endgame versus Copperhead, I gotta give it to Endgame. Copperhead has been amazing, don't get me wrong, but Endgame is a former champion. I feel like this fight could get close, but just as we saw when Copperhead got taken out by a big shot from Ripperoni, that's all Endgame really needs, and Endgame can easily get that. Then if we get Witch Doctor versus Bloodsport, I've got to give that to Witch Doctor. It's going to be able to tank those horizontal blows a lot more easily than most, and I feel like Bloodsport won't be able to say the same when it takes some of the big shots from Witch Doctor, especially if flipped over. I feel like Bloodsport gets into a lot of trouble in that situation. So if we get that fight, I'd have to give it to Witch Doctor. Now if we get Huge versus Mad Cata, I gotta give it to Huge. Mad Cata is impressive, but it's that situation again, a low to the ground robot versus the power from above. I feel like Huge is just going to rain down so much punishment and move on. We're straying further and further away now. Let's talk about how I think the round of 8 will go. As I think if the first fight is Minotaur versus Cobalt, I gotta give it to Minotaur. Minotaur has shown that it has what it takes to beat Cobalt, and I feel like it's just gonna do it again. I feel like they're absolutely gonna make it to the semi-finals. Then in Hydra versus Quantum, once again, I don't know what Quantum can really do in this situation, as Hydra is ludicrously low to the ground, and I don't think they'd give Quantum even a second. So, with that in mind, I think Hydra has that one pretty much in the bag. Then if it's Riptide versus Endgame, I gotta say, I think the former champions might just win that one. This is one situation where I feel like Riptide isn't going to have a clear-cut advantage. If they flip Endgame over, Endgame can more than easily get back on its feet. In terms of weapon-to-weapon power, I feel like this is the closest that Riptide's going to have to someone that can match them in that power. And I know that Endgame can take some wicked abuse. So, I gotta say, I feel like this fight is going to get very close, but if it happens, I gotta give it to Endgame. It's so weird predicting fights that might not actually happen, but you get what I'm saying, right? If this fight happens, then I think Endgame would have it. Then if Witch Doctor versus Huge happens, then for pretty much the same reasons that I think Huge would beat Mad Cata, I think Huge would beat Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor's great, but I feel like, again, there's not a whole lot that Witch Doctor can do against Huge. It's such an unconventional design for the typical meta of trying to get as low to the ground as possible, that Huge has always been a bit of a wild card, and the fact that now that they have like one of the more powerful spinners, I gotta say that's that's going to be massively beneficial to them. Then, again, assuming the semi-finals go the way that we've been predicting so far, and we get Minotaur versus Hydra, I've got to give it to Minotaur. Hydra really only needs like a few big spinner hits to be taken out, and if there's a robot that is going to stay consistently on them, it's got to be Minotaur. I think like Minotaur, it's going to have a tough time because it's maybe not the absolute lowest to the ground robot, but that aggression and that power, I think could really ruin Hydra's day. Then in Endgame versus Huge, if that fight happens, I'm going to have to go wild again. I think Huge could actually win. I mean, keep in mind that a lot of us thought that when Huge was going to fight Bite Force, we thought that weapon belt was going to be taken out. We thought that this was going to be a major upset, only for Huge to unfortunately split apart from damage it sustained earlier. At least I assume that's what happened. I think like that this is their time. I think this is their time where they're going to take out a former champion. You know, they can snipe that weapon chain. They can just generally do a lot of damage. Endgame's weapon's a bit bigger, so it might be able to reach the body of Huge. But I'm willing to bet Huge might just walk away with this and make it to the grand final, where it will fight Minotaur. Oh my god, I have predicted, what, like, a good month or so of, like, episodes? This is going to be wildly off. I don't know why I've done this. Now, I predicted that the grand final will be Minotaur versus Huge. Who do I think's going to win? Bale Spear, baby! Woo! Oh my god. Honestly, this is a fight that I think it could go either way. Jeez, I've got to do it, don't I? I've got to go the whole hog. If I don't do it, I'm going to go with Minotaur. I don't know. This one's tough because, you know, again, Minotaur isn't that low to the ground, but I feel like one too many shots from Minotaur's drum, if they were to go weapon on weapon, that could probably do some major damage to the bar. Maybe it's partially me just hoping Minotaur finally wins the Giant Nut, but if this were to happen, again, we haven't even seen the round of 32 yet, and I'm trying to predict the grand final winner. Like, this is a final. If this happened, I would be super happy no matter the outcome. Oh my god, I can't wait for this to be, like, hilariously off base. Well, I guess we'll only find out as the weeks progress. If you're watching this in the future, don't be too hard on me. Oh my goodness. Well, there we go. This video is a lot longer than I thought it would be, but that is my look back at my round of 32 predictions and my predictions as to how the round of 32 will go and who I think will win overall. Yeah. Thank you all for watching. I hope you did enjoy. If you did, please be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to hit that notification bell for more. You'll be notified whenever I do other videos. I review other Robot Combat shows. I reviewed Robot Wars. But if you enjoy, like, subscribe, share the video around with your friends. That'd be super appreciated. Comment and let me know what you think of the round of 32 picks. Do you think Battlebots got it right? Do you think Battlebots should have maybe tweaked some things? Do you think some of the choices they made were just dead wrong? Let me know in the comment section down below. Keep it civil, of course. And with that all being said, I will see you all next time.